Okay, so welcome to Coders Talk. I think it's episode 7 already.
Wow.
Yeah, this is Dan Fey, and he's a back-end web developer.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff. He's a big worldwide traveler.
Love traveling.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about like how he got into the field. So let's get right into that, actually. How did you get into coding?
So it started back in high school. I played a lot of Counter-Strike.
Of video games. Yeah.
Right. I know some other people you've had got into it through video games, but yeah, it sort of started. I started getting interested in computers because I would play games. Started like going through the file system to install skins for guns and stuff, and then that's what got me interested in high school to take programming classes. So I really loved those classes. It was like, it was like solving puzzles with a computer.
I didn't know they had those at high schools.
Yeah. I was pretty fortunate. So I took it 4 years in high school.
Oh, wow.
And then took like AP computer science.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you have like a whole like STEM program in your high school?
I don't know if it was called STEM.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they offered like some AP classes, and they had some like computer labs and stuff. So yeah, so I was able to take a few programming classes, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then so in college you got your BS in information technology. Did you know going into college that that's what you wanted to do? Yeah,
so coming out of high school, I know I really loved like programming. And what I really wanted, I like thought about the job, and I was like, I don't want to just like be alone at a computer all day. So I wanted to like kind of explore the people side a little bit more. So IST, Information Sciences and Technology, is kind of like a mix between computer science and business. And so there's a lot of group projects, a lot of presentations, that sort of work. So I got some exposure to that.
That's really cool. Did you learn like actual coding? Because I know when people get degrees in computer science, a lot of times they have to learn coding after they complete their degree.
Really?
Yeah, I've heard that before. Well, they'll learn like low-level languages, but like things like JavaScript or like PHP, I know a couple people who've told me they've had to learn that after.
Yeah, so I think I actually learned more coding in high school than I did in college.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I had some like required courses, but they were more like introductory level. But yeah, where I really like started to dig into like the practical applications of coding was like right as I was graduating. I tried to do a startup with my friends.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it was called Blist. It was like bucket list trips.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's like centered around like travel and like organizing like, these trips with your friends.
Yeah, right up your alley.
Right, yeah. So that's where I sort of dug into like PHP and like web development and like getting a website running, and working with like JavaScript on the front end and doing like dynamic calls, that kind of stuff. That's
so cool.
Yeah.
Did you so you work with backend now? Did you have any experience with like front end and design? You mentioned like front end JavaScript, but did you do any more designy kind of things?
I was never good at design, or I was never really like too interested in it.
Yeah.
I really liked the programming side. So, so yeah, we had like a graphical designer who would create like a Photoshop image.
Oh, cool.
And then I would take that and like, break it up and turn it into sort of like a dynamic web page.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of how I started, was more like full stack, looking at the, the front end dynamic design as well as like the PHP backend that was interacting with like the databases.
Yeah. Did you ever get into any like low level languages, or what were the first kind of languages that you worked with?
Yeah, so I learned BASIC first in high school, and then C++, and then Java, and then PHP. So then it's and JavaScript. So and then it's been, right now I'm working mostly in PHP on the back end. Yeah.
Do you work with Laravel?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, Laravel's great.
Yeah.
For a lot of things.
Are there? I'm not too familiar with PHP frameworks. What other kinds of frameworks are there?
A lot of them are very similar.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's like CodeIgniter's a little bit older. There's like Cake. There's like Symfony. There's Zen. And I don't have experience with all of them, but it's sort of similar, like MVC, model view controller.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of them were modeled off of Ruby on Rails too. So yeah, like where I'm at currently, we have like a Ruby developer, and he was able to sort of get up to speed fairly quickly because a lot of the concepts are similar between the frameworks.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, so right now you work remotely, and you actually moved here pretty recently because we met at a coding meetup. So you came here from Washington, D.C., and then you like started just coming to meetups, which I think was so cool. How did you like just like jumping into the Sacramento coding community?
It was awesome. Yeah, just the whole move has been absolutely wonderful.
Oh, good.
One of the things I was concerned about with like remote work was like being isolated, just being at home every day in my cave, like doing nothing,
not talking to anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So I did a couple of things. I joined like a co-working space. That I could go to like a couple of days a week and meet people. And then I started going to the coding meetups, and that was like more the social side and like getting involved and filling the needs that I wasn't getting. I was getting back in the office, right? Yeah. So it's been a great experience, and like I would even recommend it to anyone, even if you have like a day desk job.
Oh yeah.
Going to meetups, getting involved in the community. It's really invigorated my passion for learning, like learning new things, as well as like just understanding like what's going on in the area.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you also have been like biking everywhere, which I love. Has that like helped you like figure out the geography of this area and like where things are?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sacramento is a bikeable city.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like flat and it's pretty small. So yeah, biking everywhere. It's fun and it's like a little bit of exercise.
Yeah.
And it is good to like get the lay of the land.
We want to talk about a little bit about coding misconceptions, and you had mentioned one, which was that coders stay up all night.
They stay up all night. They're beeped like every night, so they can never sleep.
Yeah.
And because of that, they're just like night owls, right?
Yeah.
And you work 24/7. No, that's not. that's not what we do.
So what does a coder do?
Well, for me, for me, and this is important to me in any job, is to have a separation between, your work and like outside of work.
Who would think?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, you can't expect as a coder that you're gonna go in and like just work nonstop. I think there may be some sort of conception about that. Maybe it's a little bit better now, but yeah, with things like Agile, software development processes, they sort of protect the developer in that like you don't overcommit to what you're developing. There's not like this huge project that like you said it would take 3 days, but like it ends up taking 10 days, and you have to like compact that all. Yeah. There's like Agile and Scrum. You plan your things in 2-week processes. And you make sure at the beginning of the 2 weeks that you're not going to have to code all night. Yeah. And if things come up where the scope changes or something's a little harder, then you can adjust as you go as well.
Yeah, being flexible is so important.
Right.
Especially working for a company that understands that you have to be flexible and that you have to kind of like overestimate how much time things are going to take to leave that buffer. It's so important.
Yeah, and the unknown part as well. If there's something that like how to do, and like in your head you're like, I know this is gonna take like 2 hours. That's great. But if there's something that like requires like a research component, like there's this like new library that I have to use, I'm not really sure how to use it yet. You sort of have to build in that extra time because things come up.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you've done something like 300 times, it's going to be different every single time you do it. Yeah. So yeah, I was a project manager, and at the company that we worked at, like they were like, you got to get the developers to like stay extra. You got to get them to work on weekends. So I'm glad you're like talking about this and like dissipating this kind of idea.
They told you had to do that?
Yeah.
That's
they were
horrible.
Like tell me to like kind of be really friendly to them so that they would want to work for me on the weekends. And I was like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
Right.
But,
yeah, try to avoid companies like that. Ask about their development processes.
Yeah.
Ask how they organize their work. Who decides like what you work on, and how do you ensure that that you're getting things done on time, and and you're not overcommitting on your work. You should be asking questions like that in your interviews.
Oh yeah, the company culture is so important, and having people you work with who are actually like realistic. And not just like crank. Like, no, you have a life outside of coding.
Right.
You have to accept that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also their responsibility as like, a manager or like the leadership team to understand that not everything is going to go how you expect.
Yeah.
And like you have to plan on how you're going to react to that as a business. You can't just put it all on your like developers or your project managers.
Yeah. You can't push that much pressure onto part of your team. This kind of ties into something you were talking about earlier, which is that coding is a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah. So I love running, long distance running, and with people who aren't into long distance running, the thought of running a marathon or running a half marathon just seems like impossible. And really, it's not that difficult.
No, it's not.
The hard part is really being consistent and going out every day, like 4 or 5 days a week, and just getting your runs in, getting your miles in.
Yeah.
You don't have to like be at like your fastest pace every time. You can take it easy, look around, and like enjoy your surroundings, but just show up every day and do the thing, put in the time, and when it becomes race day, it's a celebration. It's easy because you put in that effort of training. And I think coding is in many ways very similar, especially if you're starting out. I know it can be frustrating to have to learn everything, and like you feel like you're not making any progress, but you put that time in every day, and over months and years, like it pays off. And the one thing with coding that is better than with running is that you don't lose it as quickly. So like you stop running for a few months and like you degrade pretty quickly.
Oh my god, yes.
Right.
And also you don't like, you're not injuring your knees by coding.
Right. So you retain all that effort that you put in, and it pays off over time.
And I mean, that's something important too, though. I've heard of some people who will stop coding and they have to get back into it too, though. So I mean, just even if you're taking a break from coding, just like visiting little projects is good too. Yeah, definitely. So so I kind of did that. After college I went traveling for 15 months. That's cool. So I went backpacking around the world. Oh my god.
through South America and Asia, and I had so much fun.
Oh my god.
But yeah, coming back, I did have to like get back into coding. And I actually found that I picked it up way quicker than I thought I would.
Okay, good, yeah.
So there is that muscle memory that you keep even if you do take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about your traveling journey?
Yeah, sure. So I was backpacking like on my own. I was living out of a carry-on size backpack.
Oh my god.
For a year and a half. And it was the best, just learning different cultures, exploring the different parts of the world. So I spent some time going from Chile up through Argentina, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador,
oh my god.
and staying at hostels along the way.
Yeah.
And the people that you meet at these hostels and the people that you meet around the world are just wonderful. One of the things I learned is that like, people are friendly around the world. Most people are friendly. I think some people, I've heard this, that like people are like, think that the world is like a hostile place, or like if you go traveling, it's like super dangerous. Like your mom might be like scared that something's gonna happen. but really, like the world is set up to travel. The world is set up for people. Yeah. And most people are nice, and like they'll help you if you ask for directions.
You mentioned that you go to a co-working space. Yeah. Do you want to go into more detail about what that means?
Sure. So I'm a member of this co-working space called the Urban Hive, and it's a really cool like artistic space. They have like paintings and local artworks on display, and there's sort of like open desks around where different people like entrepreneurs or remote workers can sort of grab a desk and get some work done during the day. And the cool thing about it is, you know, you're in a space where people are being productive, and you know, there's people around you. So, you know, you're in this like headspace that puts you in a place where you can get things done, but also feel like you're part of something bigger. Yeah. And you know, they also do other things like community lunches where you can meet some of the other people in the area that are all doing really cool things, and like happy hours. Yeah, it's just a cool place to be.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's the similar concept with Hacker Lab, which is where we are right now. We're in Hacker Lab in Midtown, and there's like a maker space which has tons of like machines. You can build things out of wood or out of metal. And then there's also like an open desk area. And then they do also have events here. And then sometimes like meetups from like meetup.com will like actually meet in these areas. And I think they meet at Urban Hive too, right?
Yep, they definitely do. It's a good thing for them to do because it's sort of like marketing, you know. New people come in and they're like, oh, this is a cool space, like I want to go there. Yeah, another great thing about the co-working spaces is that they're usually involved in the community as well.
Oh yeah.
I know Urban Hive and Hacker Lab are both like invested in like the startup community, and they have resources to help people starting their businesses, you know, find 3D printers or you know, meet and greets for venture capitalists, and you know, I know they're involved in like UC Davis sort of startup programs as well. So yeah.
And sometimes people just like strike up conversations with each other like at random when they're like walking around, and they develop like relationships that way. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great place to network and meet people.
Yeah. And there's also cool things like this photo studio, which is gorgeous, and I would not have this like cool space to film in without it. So that's cool too. This is gonna be a leap in like topics, but database design. Surprise! No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I was like really interested in this. I was looking at your LinkedIn and I saw that you do some database design. Can you explain like what that is and like what steps are involved in it?
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about it a little bit, and feel free to like ask me more questions. I can go into more depth.
Oh yeah, cool.
But yeah, so databases, they're used for storing and retrieving data in like an efficient manner and an organized manner. So depending on what you're trying to do, like, you know, let's say you have like a contact list and there's like a lot of attributes about people you want to store. You know, how do you make it so that like, you know, if there's like a city and you want to like change the city name, it like updates for everyone. Databases are really good at stuff like that. They're good at like storing data efficiently. They're good at like retrieving data quickly. So really looking at like what you're trying to accomplish and organizing your tables in your relational database so that and creating your indexes so that you can tailor it to how your application is going to be accessing that data and saving that data.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just like programming, it's a lot of like, you know, tweaking things and like, you know, learning as you go and like figuring out, oh, there's like a bottleneck on this like one query. It's like making the page load like for like 3 seconds. Like, how do I make this faster? So like maybe you'll add an index, or like maybe you'll create like a cache so that, you know, if that query is getting run really often and it's like a very slow query, then
with a lot of data.
Yeah, you can just basically like put it into a store, like even like a file, and like, and so like you kind of like you cache that work into like one place.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can play around with it.
I'm trying to think of like, you have a concept for an app and you have an idea of what you want the app to do. What are your steps for going about the database design? Do you draw it out? How many people do you talk to? Like, is it the job of one person? Is it collaborative?
Yeah, that's kind of tough. It depends on if you have like database design experience, or like if you've like actually created, you know, like MySQL tables. You know, usually what happens when you're creating an app is you want to like just create something quickly and get it out there.
Like an MVP?
An MVP, right? Yeah, because you don't know how, like, if people are going to use it, how people are going to use it. You don't know, like, what things are going to be slow or fast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just creating it with, like, basic files, like JSON files, is, like, perfectly fine. And then as soon as you start running into, like, bottlenecks or, like, things are unorganized, then you can start thinking about, like, adding databases and, like, you know, organizing it in a better way.
Yeah.
That's more tailored to that use case. Yeah.
Do you use like ORMs like Sequelize or Mongoose often, or do you just like straight up build the tables?
Yeah, again it depends. ORMs are really great for getting up and running quickly.
Yeah.
And for most simple use cases, like you know, like saving like simple data and retrieving simple data, like a content manager kind of thing, then you know you can use the ORM for like simple queries. But once you start getting like a ton of data, you know, like some of the tables that we deal with are like hundreds of millions to like billions of rows.
Oh wow.
Just
casual database.
So sometimes you have to create some more complex queries and complex joins in a way that the ORM doesn't support, because there's a lot of features to like the SQL language, and the ORMs try to abstract it in a way that you have all of that functionality, but it's not. It's not always the case.
Yeah.
Like one thing that ORMs are not traditionally as good at is retrieving things in bulk. So if you have like one table that references another table, you know, sometimes it'll fetch things one at a time, and you want to reduce the amount of like round trips to the database. So
so it's the ORM that's handling the queries themselves?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Did not know that.
Yeah.
Because we were actually encouraged to use ORMs in our bootcamp, and I didn't know the difference between just creating the table itself and then using that.
Yeah. So yeah, the ORM is in the background. It's just sending SQL to if you're using SQL or like Mongo queries.
Yeah.
So you can just code those in raw format and accomplish the same thing. But it abstracts it and makes it easier. Like a lot of like, you know, that's what frameworks do, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it makes it easier depending on how you think, because I actually sometimes think that using just raw queries is actually easier because I know what they're doing. And then sometimes the ORM handling it is a little funky to me. But
yeah, and a lot of times the ORMs will give you a way to like surface the query that it's sending.
That's cool too.
So yeah, I know in Laravel, their ORM, you can like, you have like a query object that you build like with where clauses, and then you can just call like .SQL on it, and it'll spit out like the SQL string that it's
How
sending.
cool is that? That's exciting.
Yeah, so that's really helpful for learning databases as well as you know, debugging your code.